What I want to look at real quick is how to recognize additive relationships versus multiplicative relationships. Now we're going to see these in several different forms. So what I want to do is I want to go over kind of the different forms we're going to see with each type. So first type we're going to look at is the additive. Additive. Okay, these are the easiest to recognize excuse me, in our equations, because if I'm looking at my equation right here, obviously I'm adding 5. Now, doesn't always mean that you're going to be adding. We could see it as x minus a number, because really that's like adding a negative. So it kind of stays with that addition, but it can look like subtraction. The key thing to notice is in our equation, I'm going to have some kind of constant happening afterwards, but my x, or my variable, will always be 1. An additive relationship always has a coefficient or is being multiplied by 1. Okay, so that's going to be our key to look for in our equation. Now, let's take a look at our graph right over here. In our graph, in our graph, we want to look at the origin point. That's going to give us our answer. So here's the origin on a graph. It's right at the center where the two axes intersect. If the graph does not go through the origin, like this one crosses right here on my y-axis, that is going to be an additive relationship. The graph could come up here and go something like that, and that would be additive. It could go down this way, and that would be additive. The key is that an additive relationship will not go through the origin, so it's a real quick to see for a graph. Let's look at our table right here. In the table, what you want to look for is off to the side what we call delta y, or the change in y, and delta x. On a table, if this is an additive relationship, these two numbers will be the same. So to get from -3 to -2, I added 1. From -2 to -1, added 1. From -1 to 0, added 1. If I look at my delta x, or my change in x, 1 to 2, added 1. 2 to 3, added 1, 3 to 4, added 1. So if you notice here, my delta y's and delta x's are the same number. They don't have to be 1, but they have to be the same number all the way through. That's going to recognize that it's an additive relationship. Last off, if I'm looking at my sentence right here, the value of y is 5 more than the value of x. Again, I don't see any kind of words that are going to key me off to any multiplying, any dividing. You're looking for words that are going to key you to addition or subtraction, and that's going to give you your additive. Okay, so let's take a quick look now at some multiplicative relationships. We have the same kind of idea here. First thing, if I'm looking at my equation, notice there's nothing being added or subtracted after the variable. That's going to be one of our first giveaways that this might be multiplicative. Look in front of the variable as well, I have a coefficient. I have something being multiplied. Now in this case it's 1/2. It could be a fraction, it could be a negative, it could be a positive, it could be anything as long as it's not 1. A multiplicative will have a a coefficient, or being multiplied by something other than 1. Okay? So that's going to be how we're going to see it in an equation. Now look at our graph over here. Last time on additive, I said it could not go through the origin. Well, if I look here, my multiplicative relationships will go through the origin. So look at this one right here. This graph cuts straight through the center of the graph, right through our origin point. If I did a graph like that, that would be multiplicative. If I came down like this, that would be multiplicative. As long as it cuts through the origin, that is a multiplicative relationship. So that's kind of our quick to see here. If we're looking up at our table, now I want to check the same thing I checked last time. My delta y, or my change in y, and my delta x, my change in x. For multiplicative, these are going to be different. So from -4 to -8, I subtracted 4. -8 to -12, subtract 4. -12, -16, subtract 4. 1 to 2, plus 1. 2 to 3, plus 1. 3 to 4, plus 1. If we notice here, my delta y and delta x are going to be different. That's how I know it's multiplicative. So additive, they're the same. Multiplicative, they're going to be different. Last off, if I'm looking at my scenario, the value of y is -4 times the value of x. I have some multiplication terminology. Okay, in our additive, we were looking for things that told us we were going to add or subtract, But with multiplicative, we're looking for things that are going to tell us that we're multiplying or possibly dividing. You may see things like half of a number or 1/4 of a number, something like that. Okay, but if you see an add or subtract word, that's going to key you off that it's not multiplicative. All right, hope this helps you kind of sort things out and look things over. If you're looking for these key things, you're going to have no trouble identifying our additive and multiplicative.